At some point in your life, a piece of music made you cry. Not because of a memory attached to it. Not because of the words, if it had any. Just the sound itself. A chord. A melody. A single note held too long. A shift in key that arrived at exactly the right moment and hit something in your chest before you could explain it or stop it. You probably assumed that was personal. Something about you. Your sensitivity, your history, your particular way of responding to sound. But it is not personal at all. What happened in that moment has been happening to humans for at least 40,000 years, possibly much longer. And the reason it happens has nothing to do with you specifically. It has to do with what your nervous system was built to respond to and why and how that response has carried the species through every period of darkness it has ever faced. In 2021, researchers played rhythmic music to macaque monkeys and found something no one had demonstrated before. The monkeys could track a beat. They could synchronize movement to an external rhythm. Beat perception, long assumed to be uniquely human, turned out to exist in macaques as well. But the macaques did not get chills. They did not tear up. They did not feel the thing that happens to you when a piece of music reaches past your defenses and touches something you did not know needed touching. They could feel the rhythm. They could not feel the music. That gap is worth sitting with, because it points to something that has puzzled evolutionary biologists for over a century. Music has no obvious survival value. It does not help you find food. It does not protect you from predators. It does not heal wounds or solve problems or produce any of the practical outputs that evolutionary pressure usually selects for. And yet every human culture in the history of the species has music. Everyone. Not as a luxury, as a central and essential part of social life. Charles Darwin himself was troubled by this. He wrote in The Descent of Man that music was among the most mysterious abilities humans possessed, that he could see no clear adaptive reason for it, and that it remained one of the problems he could not resolve. He was not alone in that confusion. Music is what biologists call an evolutionary puzzle, an ability that is universal, cognitively expensive, and seemingly disconnected from survival. Every other universal human trait has a clear adaptive story. Language communicates. Tool use extends the body. Social emotion maintains the group. Music just sits there, beautiful and unexplained, present in every culture that has ever existed and resistant to any single clean account of why. Researchers since Darwin have proposed dozens of answers. The most dismissive is that music is simply a pleasurable byproduct of cognitive systems that evolved for other purposes. A bonus. An accident. A side effect of language and motor coordination that happens to feel good. Not everyone accepts that. Robin Dunbar, whose work on social grooming and language has appeared throughout this series, argues that music is a social bonding mechanism that operates at a physiological level. When people make music together, or move together to music, their brains release endorphins. The same endorphins released during physical grooming, laughter, and intense social ritual. Music, Dunbar argues, is grooming at a distance. A way of producing the neurochemical signature of deep social bonding in groups too large for everyone to physically touch. Think about what that solves. In a group of 150 people, you cannot groom everyone. You cannot maintain every bond through physical contact. But you can all sing together. You can all move to the same rhythm. And in doing so, you can produce in 150 people simultaneously the same neurochemical state that physical closeness produces in two. The evidence for this is difficult to ignore. Singing together increases pain tolerance. Not slightly, significantly. A study of amateur choral singers found they could keep their hands submerged in ice water for substantially longer after singing together than before. The endorphin release from synchronized group vocalization was comparable to intense physical exercise. Their bodies were responding to making music together as if they had experienced something deeply physically bonding. Because in the language of the nervous system, they had. Soldiers throughout human history have marched to music. Not because it made them better at fighting, but because it synchronized their movement, and in doing so, synchronized something deeper. Their sense of shared purpose. Their willingness to move together into danger. Music made the group feel like one thing instead of many individuals making the same choice separately. Researchers studying religious ritual across cultures found a similar pattern. The communities that incorporated synchronized music and movement into their ceremonies showed higher levels of in-group trust and willingness to cooperate in economic games afterward. Not because of the content of the ritual, because of the synchrony. The act of moving and sounding together, even briefly, left a measurable residue of social bonding that persisted for hours. Your brain cannot fully distinguish between synchronizing movement with another person and bonding with them. They activate overlapping systems. Music exploits that overlap. It is the oldest known technology for producing the feeling that you belong to something larger than yourself. The oldest known musical instruments are bone flutes, carved from vulture wing bones and mammoth ivory, found in caves in southern Germany and dated to around 40,000 years ago. They were not crude objects. They were precision instruments, with finger holes spaced to produce specific intervals. Someone took the time to engineer them correctly. That means the people making them already had a concept of what music should sound like. The instrument was not an experiment, it was a refinement. They were found in the same archaeological layers as the earliest figurative art and the first clear evidence of complex symbolic behavior. Music did not appear late in human cognitive development. It appeared simultaneously with everything else we consider distinctly human. This timing is not an accident. Patrick Juslin at Uppsala University has spent decades studying why music produces emotional responses. What he found is that there is no single pathway. There are at least 8. Brainstem reflexes. Rhythmic entrainment, where your nervous system locks onto an external pulse. Emotional contagion, where you catch the mood of the music the way you catch the mood of a person. Episodic memory, where a sound unlocks a stored emotional state from years ago. Visual imagery, where music generates mental pictures with their own emotional weight. Most of these mechanisms are not unique to music. They are general-purpose emotional and social systems that music happens to engage simultaneously, which is why the experience of music feels so much more than simple sound. You are not just hearing it, you are synchronizing to it, remembering with it, imagining through it, and being socially bonded by it all at once. The chills you feel when a piece of music hits at exactly the right moment have a name. Researchers call them frisson, a French word for a sudden brief feeling of excitement or fear. Frisson from music appears to involve the release of dopamine in the nucleus accumbens, the same brain region involved in the anticipation of reward. What the brain seems to be doing is predicting what comes next in the musical phrase and experiencing a small rush when the music either confirms the prediction or violates it in a way that feels satisfying. You are not just feeling the music, you are feeling your own mind working. The people who experience musical frisson most intensely tend to score high on the personality trait of openness to experience. They are people whose brains are particularly engaged by novelty, pattern, and the interplay between expectation and surprise. The music does not create the experience. The music gives the brain something to work on, and the brain produces the experience itself. Now think about what this means for the music your ancestors made 40,000 years ago in a cave in Germany with a bone flute. They were not entertaining themselves in their spare time. They were doing something the brain was built to do, something that synchronized the group at a physiological level, that released the neurochemical signatures of trust and bonding, that made 30 people feel briefly like one thing. And in a world where social cohesion was the margin between survival and extinction, any tool that could do that reliably had immense value. The groups that made music together held together better. They trusted each other more readily. They cooperated under pressure more effectively. They showed up for each other in ways that groups without that shared neurochemical bonding did not. Over thousands of generations, the groups that sang together and moved together and drummed together out-survived the ones that did not. And their descendants inherited not just the tradition, but the neural architecture that made it possible. That architecture is yours. The emotional response to music is also one of the only human experiences that consistently activates multiple brain regions simultaneously. Visual cortex, motor cortex, limbic system, prefrontal cortex, brainstem. Music does not live in one place in the brain. It lives everywhere. It is processed by every system at once. And that distributed processing is why it feels so overwhelming when it hits. You are not reacting to it in one register. You are reacting to it in every register your brain has. Music is older than farming, older than cities, older than writing, older than almost every institution humans have ever built. And yet, when a piece of music hits you in the chest and you cannot explain why, the explanation is already there. It has always been there. Your nervous system is doing what it was built to do, responding to a signal that says the group is here, that you are not alone, that whatever you are feeling right now is not just yours. It was shared around a fire 40,000 years before you were born. And it still is. That small shift in how you see yourself is why this channel exists. Every week I follow one human instinct back to where it began. Subscribe so the next one reaches you. Leave a like so it reaches someone else. And if you want to keep pulling this thread, the next one is on screen now.